Thank you for coming out. I'm sure it's been a long but hopefully fun day as part of this great Blackhawks Convention weekend. I'm Adam Kempenaar. I'm the Vice President of Digital Content for the Blackhawks. I'm really proud to oversee a group of people here at the Blackhawks, a really talented group of people who produce our video content, including the Blackhawks TV stuff you're going to watch, and our social media, everything you see over at chicagoblackhawks.com. I'm going to get to introductions here with our wonderful panel here in a moment. Some quick announcements. I know you've probably heard them a million times today, but just some reminders on ticket on sales. August 6th, preseason tickets. August 20th, regular season tickets on sale. Training camp festival tickets, only $5. Alex DeBrincat bobblehead to the first 10,000 fans. You can get those right now. And with that, let's go ahead and start our panel here talking about Blackhawks Originals. This is our long-form video series that really started last year with our On the Clock series going behind the scenes of the draft. And I do actually, before we get to any questions with these guys, I want to show a clip. We're gonna get to a lot of video here in this panel. So we're gonna start with that. This is a clip from episode 1, season 1 of On the Clock.
Right now, these books are the draft meeting books for management, and they pretty much compose all of these scouts' overall draft lists. They'll see roughly, 200 plus games throughout the whole year.
Now we've pretty much had all the live viewings of the players. I've actually done this a little bit in regions. Jimmy's gonna go right there, yeah. Slide Peter over. We're in the mode where we're trying to gather the character information to go with the information we have of them. So right now I think we're in a good spot. I think that's it. May 1? Yeah. Overall draft list? As we get started here, we have about 6.5 weeks. So the goal is we want to build a board, a list that we can work off of.
The amateur scouts are the lifeblood of our organization.
In the next 3 days, let's get out there our thoughts on the players.
We're going to be on center stage here in Chicago for the NHL draft. On the 23rd and 24th, we have 10 picks.
We really want to know what a player can do. What is that little trait that's going to take them to the next step? How much we like them. If you have concerns on a player, voice them.
If you're not great, we're sunk. If the people in this room aren't great at what you do, we will be in peril. And everybody tells you that the Blackhawks are different. They're at this elite level. Let's not get caught napping. Let's not get caught believing that.
With that, let's go. This is important because this is really where we take the players from the Western Hockey League, players from Russia, players playing high school hockey, and we have to marry them all into one list. Everyone can't see all the players. So it's really up to me to make sure we get a good balance of people crossing over to the various regions and then being able to put that all together.
He's a little guy, but he finds open space.
He reminded me of like the running backs that the New England Patriots get. They're about 5'9". They go right into the hole. I mean, he had no problem going into the paint. Let's go to the USHL.
It's same. They're very close for me.
The drawback is
Transition it and turn it in the NHL goes so far up from junior, and he has challenges at this level. I think he's going to be drafted very high, probably a first-round pick for somebody, but I have concerns with it for us. So.
We're trying to build the Chicago Blackhawks. We're not trying to build a list of the best players from A to Z. We're trying to find the best players A to Z for the Blackhawks.
We're going to start with our senior vice president and general manager of the Chicago Blackhawks, Stan Bowman. Stan, I wanted to ask you about the access, because none of this happens without that access. It's incredibly rare for NHL teams to open up their scouting room at all. It's unique to have a team open it up that thoroughly. We really were everywhere in terms of where we had cameras. what was your reaction when myself, Eric, when Jay Blunk approached you and said, we'd really like to do this, we're hosting the draft, let's try something we've never done before, and let's really take fans behind the scenes. How did you feel?
Well, for it to be worthwhile and for the fans to be interested, you have to be able to give them some good content. And, you know, it really comes down to just a level of trust that we have in our organization. I think we work really well together, you know, the hockey side and the business side. We understand the challenges they have, and we realize that we got to cooperate if we want to make this thing work. And, you know, we didn't want to enter into a project like this if it wasn't going to be something really special. So part of that would be giving you guys the ability to listen in and talk to everyone and really get a feel for what it's truly like. Because that's something that, you know, we live it, and we go through these meetings every year, and but the fans don't get to see what really happens and how we arrive at the players that we ultimately pick. So, you know, for us, it was a matter of making it compelling, and you have to have the content if the fans are going to be interested. And I think, you know, you guys did a great job. We just went about our jobs as normal, and we let you observe, and you put together a great show.
Jim McKellar, our head Eastern Canadian scout, head Eastern amateur scout, I should say, not just Canada, but you allowed those cameras to come in, like Stan said. He just said that the goal was to just have them go about doing their jobs. Were you able to just go about doing your job once those cameras were everywhere?
Yeah, originally you do notice the extra cameras and a few extra bodies around, but once we get into the discussion, we're talking players and trying to find players, and ultimately, you know, we want to discuss and debate, and we forgot the cameras were there throughout. I know there's a few clips where we get into it, and we're just talking honestly and candidly to get the best players for the Blackhawks. So, you know, you guys are there doing it and a part of it, but ultimately we kind of forgot you were there.
Talk about the conversations you're having. You didn't see it so much in that clip, but it was a larger part of the full episode. The conversations, the debate that sometimes happens in that room. It's a respectful one, but it's also one where you are fighting for and arguing for a prospect you often feel very strongly about.
Yeah, ultimately we see these guys play a lot of games and we believe in them, and we're working towards a consensus as a group, but individually you have players you're very passionate about, and it's important to get that known in the meetings, otherwise you'll never get that player on the list and up the list. And I think the harder we push and give Stan the information that he needs to make a decision along with Mark Kelly, the better. So as candid as we can be, we debate, we discuss, but at the end of the day, every player we draft is a Blackhawk, regardless of the area that they come from. It's not a regional bias by any means. We're just working towards getting the best player.
Eric Lear, our Blackhawks TV reporter and video manager, going into that first day of shooting, and I do want to pause here and acknowledge that while we're up here getting to take the credit for all of this great work you see, we've got an incredible crew at Banner Collective, video production team, in terms of their shooting ability, their editing ability, really just great producers. Will Armistead, Justin Zipser, Grace Aldrich, Tim Riley, Spencer Wade, a few others there who chip in, a few others who chip in from our side as well. Lots of hands go into making a video like that. But Eric, what were your goals when you walked in? You never stepped foot in a NHL draft room before. How did you prepare for it? What were your expectations?
I think the hardest part was trying to shoot everything. There's a table of 15, 20 scouts and executives. How do you get everyone's face on camera saying something meaningful? So the biggest challenge for us, the folks that you mentioned, is how do we go about miking up the room? How do we go about shooting this? So the first day, I think, was kind of a feeling out process, and luckily we had a few more days of that, and then when we did it again this year, it was a little smoother. But for us, it was just try to give you guys the fly on the wall experience that we really didn't know what we were getting into and what it was going to be like, but to try to capture it as well as we could to give that behind closed doors feel for the fans.
We're going to see, obviously, some more of this process. We all know what it resulted in, the draft selection of one of the guys on this stage, first-round pick from 2017, Henry Jokiharju. Henry, thanks for joining us. Henry, were you watching any of this stuff? And you don't have to say whether or not you watched on the clock. I won't put you on the spot. Were you watching what other teams were doing, the rankings, all the chatter about you?
Yeah, of course. Like you watching on those stuff, but you don't want to focus too much on those things, like on the draft, like for every guy, everything can happen. So of course I was watching those, but nothing, no focusing too much on those things.
Mm-hmm. Another one of the Blackhawks' most promising young players on the stage, a 6th-round pick in 2014, Dylan Secura. Dylan, what was the draft process like for you back in 2014? Obviously a later round pick, but were you paying attention? How did you get the phone call? What were your nerves like, if any, on that day?
Yeah, I think my route was a little less conventional than most. I remember meeting with Jim a while back, I think 5 years ago now, and just going for lunch with him, and he was the first, Chicago was the first team that I met with. Obviously coming from a less known league in the OJHL back in Ontario. I think it's, like you said, you kind of find good players all over the place. And I remember I was just sitting at home, wasn't paying too much attention to the draft. I didn't know if I was going to go or not. And I got the call, I think, from one of the scouts, Mike Donaghy, and obviously a day that changed my life.
We're going to turn now to a clip from episode 2, or episode 2 of this season 1, actually. So the one that just came after the clip you saw, and I'm going to actually have you set it up a little bit, Eric, because this is a good time maybe to explain to the crowd how we went about trying to make each episode have its own unique feel.
So this was the Memorial Cup in Windsor, which a little bit of a challenge for us in this first season was how do we go about showing the process but not necessarily hearing what player these guys are talking about. That's obviously some sensitive information to get out before a draft, so we kind of thought the best way to handle that would be, let's show what the scouts are doing. Let's hear what their life is like. They're on the road all the time. What are they doing in the stands? What are they talking about during these games? What notes are they taking? So this Memorial Cup was basically we call it a scout's life. So we kind of showed what Jim and Alex and a few other scouts, what their kind of day-to-day life is like, which is a pretty challenging life on the road.
Before we get to that, I do want to point out, because I missed it off the top, you can submit a question for this panel. We'd love to hear them. If you want to go back and submit one, you can do that over there where the sign is in the corner. And we're also streaming this on all our platforms, so the Blackhawks app, chicagoblackhawks.com, our official Facebook page, and Twitter. So all those people watching, thank you for doing so. You can submit a question too, and we might get a chance to get to those here at the end. Let's go ahead then and watch that clip from episode 2.
Life for us, we're at home for short stints, and then we're on the road. A lot of airport hotels and a lot of flights and a lot of rental cars. But it's a busy schedule, but it's sort of, I don't know. I've always worked in hockey.
I was drafted by Vancouver back in 1980. Signed on with St. Louis. I think I was up for about 28 games or so. Retired, got out of the game for 10 years. Was in advertising, doing computer graphics.
I'm married. I've been married for coming up on 9 years, and have a 2-year-old. My daughter really enjoys, and she can say Blackhawks.
That's one of the reasons that I did get out of the game for 10 years, was so that I could spend time at home with them. It gave me a chance to coach my son when he was growing up and be a part of his hockey. It wasn't until my son went on to play in the Western League that I got back into the game and pursued it again.
With her being little, you miss parts of her growing up, and FaceTime is a wonderful thing. When I'm on the road, I try and make sure no matter what time, talk to her for breakfast, and that usually means there's some normalcy to the job.
This is the Memorial Cup, which is the winners of the 3 CHL leagues, the Western League, the Ontario League, and the Quebec League, along with the host Windsor. It's the CHL Championship, and a lot of good prospects have come through here.
It's a chance for us to kind of check in on the draft-eligible players on those teams. Obviously, it's nice to have some Blackhawks prospects here as well to see how they do on the big stage. So it's a really good chance to see players raise their level, regular season, playoffs, and then this is championship. I was assistant GM of the London Knights for 11 years. I worked with them from 2000 till 2011. I joined the Hawks in 2010.
The Blackhawks are proud to select Ryan Hartman.
Ryan Hartman was a player that I was heavily involved in. He joined the Plymouth Whalers in his draft year. Mark Kelly lives right in Plymouth area, and he and I saw Ryan regularly. I interacted with him a lot, spent a lot of time getting to know him, getting to know Ryan throughout the year, and then we draft him at the end of that season. And then obviously, he's been a part of our organization the last 3 years.
His first National Hockey League goal!
Every time a guy gets called up or becomes a player in Chicago, you feel a part of that success when somebody gets the call or they score their first goal or can help contribute to us winning games.
DeBrincat fires and scores! There's number 50 on the season!
I actually went to dinner with Jim McKellar, and they took us out, a few of the guys on our team. So the first time a team really took us out to dinner or really talked to us really seriously. So it kind of means a lot for the players to get that connection and have a friendly face around the rink.
We have a communicating staff that talks a lot and spends a lot of time in a tight group, and we have some guys that are funny.
Get up and dance.
I've worked with Alex now for 2 years, and that's what you want, a passion and somebody that's interested in getting the right player and getting the info that'll help us.
Jim was right next to me in Ontario, and he sort of took over the mentorship role, and he's been really good to me.
Hey, Alex.
A great mentor and always someone that I can rely on if I have questions, if I need to talk to someone, or sometimes just blow some steam and call someone, and I can always reach out to him.
So Jim, obviously one of the stars of that episode. We see the highs and the lows of the scouting life there, even in that clip, in terms of on the high end being part of a selection and seeing that draft pick pay off and make their way to the NHL, the lows of it being away from your family. Is that really the hardest part of it?
Yeah, I think, traveling, we travel so much, but the benefit is when you see a player make it, like Ryan Hartman playing or Alex now, a part of the organization, we have pride. I mean, I could be a game miles and miles away from the United Center, and I get a little note on my phone from one of those score updates that Alex has scored a goal or Ryan Hartman scored or somebody you've been a part of, and you beam with pride. You're happy to be a part of bringing them into the organization and now just see them blossom and move along.
How many nights a year are you typically on the road?
I don't really like to say because it's crazy, but I see about 230 games a year, and I'm on the road about 125 to 150 hotel nights a year.
Wow. Stan, you are on the road your fair share as well, obviously following the Blackhawks, might be in Rockford, and also scouting, of course. What's your level of respect for the grind that these guys go through?
It's a really tough job. I think it's hard to really communicate because they have a lot of travel, and it's always during the winter time. A lot of it's driving through the snow. Where these leagues are located, it's not the most glamorous cities. They're not really in great vacation spots, so they're away from their home and they're away from their family, and they're it's sort of a lonely life a lot of times. So we saw Alex there, who is a new to our organization, and I think the biggest thing is amongst the scouts trying to have some camaraderie and within their own brotherhood of Blackhawks scouts, and even some guys from other teams that you'll kind of do the same circuit and you go to the same places. So there's a lot of a team feel for the scouts as well, and I think I don't want to say they're overlooked, because from our perspective, they're the ones that make this work. They're the ones that find these players. I think probably from a recognition standpoint, I don't know if everyone knows how difficult the job is, but they don't complain. They love to go watch hockey games and discover players, and we're fortunate to have them.
It may be a little bit of a silly question because the obvious answer would be that they have a good eye for talent, but for you, for the Blackhawks, what makes a good scout?
Well, that's the most obvious. Obviously, they have to be able to watch a game and be able to pick up details on a player. The hard part for amateur scouts is that they're doing a lot of projecting. They're watching these guys that are 17 years old, and I would say almost every one of them is somewhat of a raw material. They have some talents and they have some deficiencies, and you've got to try to do a little bit of guessing and try to figure out, well, this player, he might be really strong right now, but when things start to change in the next couple of years, I'm not sure he's going to be able to play the way that the Blackhawks need him to. So I think they have to have that the mindset of not always looking exactly at what they're doing right now. It's you're projecting years down the road. So that's the most probably critical feature you have. The other part of it is getting to know, you know, both these guys have talked a little bit about it. You know, when you take someone out to dinner, it's not just to kind of check off the list and say you have some questions you want answered. You want to try to get a feel for them and understand what are they like, you know, what motivates the player, what are they passionate about, are they going to be able to fight through adversity 4 years later when they don't make the team right out of training camp and they're going to be disappointed, are they going to be able to face those challenges and overcome them? And the only way you can do that is if you establish a bit of a relationship. So the best scouts are the ones that not only can see how they play, project how they're going to be, but get to know them as people and understand, you know, if there's someone that you want to go to war with.
So turn it over to the players then. Dylan, we'll start with you. Do you know, or how aware were you that there were scouts in the audience watching you? And did it ever affect your game? And then I guess following up on what Stan said, what is that like, kind of creating a relationship with someone who's potentially going to draft you?
Yeah, it was awesome. Just like I said, coming from a smaller league, there's, I think, usually less scouts than most other guys would experience. But you know, obviously, like the first time that I met Jim and we went out to dinner, it was a pretty awesome experience. And you know, just getting to know guys at the next level like that is pretty amazing. And you know, whenever they're there, I think it's in the back of your mind, but you try not to think about it too much. And you know, just try to play your game and just know that they're there watching for a reason.
How about you, Henry?
In WHL, it was like, of course, we knew there's like always like 20, 15 scouts watching us. So you just start like, you don't even like think about it too much. There's so many games, like 72 games and plus playoffs. So you don't think that much of the scouts. And I just want to enjoy the game and like the crowd. And but when you know there's a scouts watching you, it's awesome. Like show your best.
So let's go from the draft process into more the development process and trying to make that transition to the NHL from the draft. We're going to show a clip from a Blackhawks Originals feature this year, focusing on Dylan signing Sekura. Eric, set it up for the audience in terms of what our goal was with this episode and why we thought it would be such a good feature to focus on Dylan.
Yeah, it's hockey. I have a basketball background, and I think when you look at basketball and football, you know who these players are. College is so big, and they play pro right away in the next year. You already know who these guys are. When John Hayden signed after Yale and came right to the Blackhawks, I thought that was kind of an interesting, unique thing. Maybe a lot of fans didn't know about, and we knew that was a potential for Dylan to do just that. So what a cool story it would be to follow that process and hope that it works out of him signing and coming and joining the Blackhawks and shortly after a college season and playing a week later, and luckily it worked out that way, and it was it's kind of a cool way to show what that process is like because it is so unique in hockey compared to some other sports.
So let's see what it was like then for Dylan to have a camera in his face for 3 or 4 days. Let's watch the clip.
Obviously, the top of the list is Dylan Sekura, who's finishing his senior year at Northeastern, and the hope is it's a situation like Hayden last year where he'll sign and come right in and join the Blackhawks, and which, I mean, he's never going to be a big guy. He'll never be in, you know, the high 190s, but you know, I think that the right added muscle will take him to that next level. Top 9 skill for sure, with the potential to work into a top 6 role, I feel, in the future.
Having hockey in my life, it's something that hopefully I'm going to be doing for, maybe not the rest of my life, but as long as I can. And I'd say just the feeling of, you know, going out there every day and to play hockey as a job is kind of the pushing force or the drive motivation for me.
Tonight on Nesson, it's the Huskies of Northeastern and the Catamounts of Vermont. The Northeastern Huskies are hot. They're off to their best Hockey East start since the 08-09 season, Chris.
Absolutely, and it's really a tale of two different teams here. We have one of the hotter teams in Hockey East, as you mentioned, and Northeastern should be a good matchup and a good test for who's king on the block right now in Hockey East.
Even just with 10 seconds left here, I love our attack mentality. Breakout, same thing here. I love the attack we had.
So let's make sure D and forwards go forward, we get good body position at the net, and we come back and we help out our net front, okay?
To honestly say that I have a shot in the NHL, that would have came maybe last year, maybe my sophomore year, but it's always something to think about. No matter how good or how big, how tall you are when you're younger, you're always thinking about that.
The Huskies win the opening faceoff. Huskies get the first line out again. Goal post, Dylan Secura. Huskies still trying to get their first goal of the game.
And you got to think they're on the bench right now going, what do we have to do here?
Shea through a screen. Score! And the Huskies have tied it with 8:10 to go in the third period. Secura. Now Davies works his way in and scores to give the Huskies a 2-1 lead late in the third period.
Well, it's a great play by Secura.
And Northeastern defeats Vermont 2-1.
This is a team, as you know, in this building that we just played against has beaten us the last 2 times, and they found a way to win. Hey, we reversed it tonight, guys. Congratulations.
Yeah, that was when it started the give and go game.
Yeah,
that's when you guys got affected. I liked your ozone play though. You know, there's a chance he could have been playing for the Blackhawks this year, but he decided to come back to school, and for him it's about starting to instill those NHL habits.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and whenever you can come and kind of give me tips on the game, it's pretty brief, but they try to help us out, but not stick their head too much through the door, not be a distraction for me throughout this season. I think they're doing a great job of that.
All right, we'll be in touch.
Let's get Kyle on the phone and find out exactly where we are.
Hi, Stan.
You got a minute?
Sure.
Okay, I got Al in the office here. I just wanted to go over the game plan for Dylan. Obviously, they play this weekend. We have to be prepared if they lose to have all of our stuff in order for him to come to Chicago.
So we play Saturday. If they win, they play, play again Sunday.
Yeah, if Dylan's eliminated this weekend, either Saturday or Sunday, we're set up for expedited approval on the contract. I think we're pretty safe in assuming he can get in the lineup for Thursday.
The other thing, he said he wants to wear number 95, which I thought was good for us. We don't have a 95. I think we got a pretty good plan here in place.
Yep, I think we're good to go for this weekend, and we'll see how things play out.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, to be honest, I'm a little nervous. Thank you. Hey, thank you. Appreciate it. Just checking in.
Yes, sir. Last name?
Secura, S-I-K-U-R-A. Smelly suits.
How are you today? Where are you coming from?
Boston. Just try to talk to a couple guys here. And obviously, I know some of the younger guys just from over the years, and was able to hang out with a couple of them last night. And it's cool to see them here.
Was there ever any doubt that you would be here whenever college ended for you?
No. There's obviously some people a little doubt, but there's a reason I went back for my senior year there. Just try to stay grounded there and keep this whole Chicago thing in the background until my college season ended, and then end up here.
These are the guys you get excited about because you've invested a lot of time in him, and we think Dylan's got a chance to be a real special player for us, so it gets you excited.
So Dylan, I do want to talk about that debut for a second. We see you going out of the tunnel there. Just a little bit of an eventful night for the Blackhawks. Obviously, it was your pro debut, but let's see, Brent Seabrook celebrating a milestone, and Scott Foster ended up happening that game, right? A little bit overshadowed you. Were you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay. How does it feel, though, to have a camera following you around on campus. There's a part earlier in that episode where you see your friends, probably some teammates, giving you a little bit of grief about having the camera in your face. But did you eventually, like Jim and Stan, kind of forget that the cameras were there?
Yeah, it was a little different just because at school you kind of stick out like a sore thumb around campus with videos around you all day. But yeah, like a couple days in, I got used to it, and it was pretty cool to have them there. And you know, obviously, didn't really know what to expect from the video, but it obviously with Eric and his team, it kind of exceeded all our expectations.
Have a question here from someone in the crowd. Connor in Boise. How was it juggling school, hockey, and the hype of signing with the Hawks?
It was pretty tough. I think to be a hockey player, you know, time management's a big thing about that. And you know, at school, you're fortunate enough to have a supporting staff or a lot of people helping you out. And you know, in the classroom, like so we had all our classes during the day and practice around 2 o'clock. And after that, we'd have study hall and people always helping you. And you know, the professors were always nice if you ever missed classes and stuff like that. So obviously it was a challenge, but it's just something that you got to overcome. And you know, that obviously there for hockey, which is the main part, but you can't forget about the school part as well.
We've seen your brother Tyler around this weekend as well. Melissa here in Chicago wants to know what it's like to be a part of the same organization as your brother.
Yeah, it's a dream come true, you know, to be in the same organization as your brother, and obviously to be part of Chicago is pretty special. And you know, it's pretty rare nowadays to see that, and you know, just to see him have the opportunity to be a part of this organization as well is it's amazing.
Jim, Stan talked about the difficulty of your job. One of them is that you aren't just judging the player that you're watching, you're trying to project the player they're going to be. You saw Dylan you saw him very early on. What are your thoughts on the player he was then and how rewarding it's been to see him develop into the player he is now?
Well, he's always been skilled and really a smart player, good offensively. A lot of the things you see today he was doing back then. He just needed to continue to get stronger and advance and move along the levels. But he was a dominant player in his league. He had the puck all the time, and you know, he had the hockey sense to make plays. And you know, you see him go off to Northeastern and do really well. And obviously he's, you know, had a great career at Northeastern. And to see him start here is tremendous. I mean, I think back to when we met way back, and it would have been 5 years ago now, Dylan. We went for, you know, a bite to eat and chatted, and you know, his personality is exactly as it is today. He was very easy to talk to and engaging and likable, and those are kind of the traits you go with. You go with the skill, the skating, the hockey sense, but also his personality. And you know, we kind of bet on those attributes, and he's delivered on it so far.
Stan, when did you have a sense that Dylan wasn't just a decent, promising draft pick, but really had NHL potential?
I think he took a big step his sophomore year. You know, his freshman year, I'm sure he would tell you, it was a tough year for him. And I remember at the time we had Mike Sullivan, who's the coach of the Penguins. He was working for us at that time, and he went up there a couple times to work with Dylan. And I think one night he didn't play. He was a healthy scratch, and I know it was a tough freshman year. And then I'm not sure exactly what happened between that year and the second year, but it was obvious in his sophomore year that things started to turn around. He started to be more productive, and then his junior year he really took off. And I think that was when, you know, you saw flashes of it his sophomore season, and he really took off that junior year. And you know, we had talked at the end of that year thinking that it was really time for him to leave school and turn pro. And you know, to his credit, he just didn't feel he was ready yet. He had some unfinished business there to go back. He wanted to play a bigger role and try to accomplish some things and get his degree. So you know, but you could see it starting to turn that second year in college, and then you know, he just continued to get better each year after that.
So Eric, that whole video, kind of remarkable, was really just you and Justin Zipser, a great shooter and editor, spending some time at Northeastern following Dylan. What's your favorite part of that video? What was your favorite part to capture where you kind of, you know, you had a smile on your face, you knew you'd gotten something good?
So much. I mean, I love that video, and Dylan was nice enough to let us follow him all over the place in class and behind the scenes quite a bit. I love the scene that you saw. I felt kind of like that was Friday Night Lights. Like it was, the game scene was really high energy and exciting, but going from kind of a documentary storytelling side of it, I thought it was cool to go to be in class and show that side of things. And just the access of being in the power play meeting before the game and hearing the coach speak. It's really tough to pick one moment, but when I look back at that and watch that, the game sequence just really sticks out to me.
Well, before we talk about Henry's development after the draft, we have to get to how he got drafted and see a little bit of that process. So we're going to go back to a clip from On the Clock. This is season 1, the final episode 4.
So we started to shift from possibly moving up to watching to what was happening. As we got closer, Dallas called.
Let me call you back. Dallas wants to move up. They're at 29.
What do they want?
He offered me his third.
And Stan, and talking to him, asked him flat out, who are you going to take? They told us they wanted the goaltender. We weren't looking at the goaltender in that spot, so we turned around getting a free pick, number 70 there, to slide back 3 spots.
We felt confident based on some intel that we had that our player, we were going to essentially get the same player that we would have taken if we would have kept our pick.
We have a trade.
It's okay.
You're gonna get to do it
It's
again.
okay.
Chicago trades pick number 26 to Dallas in exchange for pick number 29 and pick number 70.
They just took Bowers.
Okay, good. They took Bowers.
Yeah, Bowers.
So we're good to go.
You know who we're taking?
Okay, let's try it again. The 29th selection in the 2017 NHL Draft belongs to the Chicago Blackhawks.
If he doesn't get beat defensively, he wins those puck battles and it's out.
He'll fit.
Yeah. You want Darryl to carry the jersey in the hat?
You like a player as much as we like Henry. You're holding your breath when you're picking late that he slips through, and he did, and I think the future is real bright for him.
Who do you want to bring?
No, it's up to you. Your staff.
What?
It's your staff.
You want to bring them all? Sure. I think the staff feels very appreciated. The words, they become actions. And I think that means a lot to the scouts, to the staff.
I'd like to start by giving a big thank you to the great fans here in Chicago. The Blackhawks are proud to select. I think there's a better way to do this.
How could we do something sort of unique as opposed to just having the traditional me or someone else on the staff call out the player's name? Make sure they get the pronunciation, okay? We tried to do something that would be symbolic as well as meaningful for our fans.
I think it's only appropriate that we have those guys come up and make the selection.
With the 29th pick, the Chicago Blackhawks select Henry Jokiharju.
Nailed it. He's got a lot of hands to shake. Congratulations, Henry.
Thank you, Stan.
Thank you so much.
Chicago loves you.
Thank you. I was nervous, and I just hear Henry, and I was like, oh yeah. Patrick Kane, Jonathan Taine, obviously huge idols for me, and those franchise players. And when they say my name, it's like I'm super excited right now. That was unbelievable. Make my feel even more like unbelievable, because I have been a Chicago fan.
We tracked him hard all year long. He's dynamic with the puck.
If you need anything, I'll give you my number or shoot me a text anytime.
All right, sounds good.
All right, good luck.
Thank you.
He makes fast plays, he creates offense. He's what we call a real easy skater. He can play a lot of minutes because his skating is, he conserves a lot of energy and moves, he glides so well.
I think he's got that mobility that you like to see in today's game, and this was a guy we really liked, and so we're sitting here feeling pretty good.
So, Henry, I know you've been asked this a lot, probably this weekend even, but take us back to that day. What were your nerves like sitting in the stands? Did you have any sense when that maneuvering was going on and the trade was announced and then the Blackhawks were taking the stage? Did you think that Jonathan and Patrick were going to say your name?
Yeah, it was obviously a long day for waiting, and I knew I'm not gonna go like top 20 or anything. I knew like maybe late first, maybe second round, but yeah, I knew like Chicago was really interested about me. I was nervous when the 26th pick came out, and with the trade, I was like, oh man, like I was still wait like a couple picks, and we'll see like if someone else gonna pick me before that. But yeah, after a couple teams drafted, 29th pick came over there, and yeah, see Taves and Kane walking over there is making me even more nervous, and even right now watching the clip, it's give me chills and like smile on my face every time, and it was awesome to have my family over there, and everyone saw that even in the clip when I talked to Jonathan Taves. I was like freeze out, just couldn't believe this happened, that one. Like just talk with Jonathan Taves on that one on live, and it's just a unique moment for me and my family too.
How have Jonathan and Patrick been this weekend? They've treated you okay? Like you're part of the family?
Yeah, treating really good, and we talked with Johnny a lot, so he's a super nice guy, and that's why he's a captain, of course.
So Stan, I want to go to you. I know you're a good actor because I saw it there in that moment when you gave the misdirection on the draft pick, but at the draft table, having looked at a lot of this footage, just your blood pressure just never raises. You're so calm, and I'm wondering if that is a little bit of an act. Are you nervous when that draft starts, or by the time it begins and you've done all this preparation and all the scouts have weighed in, are you just excited for it to get going?
I guess there's a little bit of nerves, but I think more so it's excitement, and you're trying to stay focused on what you're trying to do, and I think that's one of the things I learned a long time ago is that when you get too nervous about things, you may lose track of where you're at, and try to just stay calm and process everything and think it through. So I think there's more sort of anticipation. You're waiting. Like obviously this year we didn't have to wait as long, only picking where we did. But I think the beginning of that first round, there's an element of nerves because you're looking at the future of your franchise here. These players that you pick in the first round are going to be integral parts of your future. So there's that part of it, but I think maybe it's a bit of an act, but you're trying to stay focused and not get too ahead of yourself.
I was just going to say, Adam, when we walked up to the stage, I knew we were picking Henry. All of us knew we were taking Henry. And I thought Stan actually forgot his name. I didn't realize that Patrick and Johnny were coming out to do that. And we're all standing there going, why doesn't Stan know the guy's name? Why is he pausing? And then, of course, the delay came out and we were all relieved, and Henry came up. And so all the scouts were talking in the back going, we talked about this guy all day today. How can we possibly not know his last name?
So I actually had Jim's title right the first time, Head Eastern Canada Scout. So those back roads of Canada are where you make your living, certainly. And I want you to talk a little bit more about that being at the draft table, because like you said, you're a little bit out of the loop because there's 20 people sitting at that table and everyone's kind of crowded around it. How involved are the scouts at that point once you get to the draft table? Is it pretty much kind of Mark and Stan having those conversations?
Yeah, the work has been done leading right up to the moment we go to the draft. And by the time we're at the draft, it's Stan and Mark working through the draft, and they'll ask us questions or call us over about a situation. But all the work has been done throughout the year, and it's basically they're very good at managing kind of what pick, where guys are going to go, and they ask us. Stan is very good, and Mark Kelly is very good about communicating with us and asking us throughout the year. So there's no real secrets. A lot of the information has come along early on, and by the time we get to the draft, the two of them, as I say, they work through it and they use us as resources, but it's a pretty well-oiled machine, to be honest.
Eric, what was the biggest challenge shooting that episode?
There was just so much happening. That was a busy stretch, especially being in Chicago. Luckily, like Adam mentioned, our video staff is very talented, and we have a good number of them. But I mean, I feel like that could have been a 45-minute episode with everything that happened during that stretch, some trades, and luckily we had a very charismatic, personable pick who was very great to work with behind the scenes. So trying to fit everything that you want to fit into a 10 to 14-minute window was definitely the biggest challenge.
Did y'all see how Eric was trying to butter Henry up for future Blackhawks TV shoots? I hope it worked. We'll see. Let's get to some more of Henry with a clip from one of our most recent Blackhawks Originals features. We debuted it right before Prospect Camp, Development Camp here a couple weeks ago. The 29th pick, you saw the process of Henry getting drafted. Now we see a little bit into the process of what happens after you're drafted.
With the 29th pick, the Chicago Blackhawks select Henry Jokiharju.
I want to dream big. I want to see myself next year playing NHL.
His overall game when he was at the World Junior was the same as what we saw here. Is it going to project well at the NHL level? Is he ready next year to come in and play? That's tough for any defenseman to play at the NHL level at 19.
Watching the NHL, you feel like, damn, I want to play there. I want to be that guy who can be a difference maker. I remember like first day when I traveled probably like 24 hours from Finland to Portland, and it was tough. I never been shy to talk in English, but obviously my English wasn't that good in that part.
As he came here to Portland, moving away from home, like a lot of players, it's a very difficult transition. Probably by Christmas of last year, he really hit his stride. We had one of our profile defensemen away at the World Junior, allowed Henry to bump up in the lineup. I thought at that time he started to play with more confidence, more take charge approach. Leading up to the draft last year, his game just kept getting better and better.
My first game was actually the home opener. 11,000 fans. I remember when they were like number 16, Henry Jokiharju, I was like, feels really good, and like so much fans cheering for us, and for me it was like awesome. Like I tried like talk on the ice, I just couldn't like yell anything, it was so loud.
What a cool moment, what a way to enter the league for Henry Jokiharju.
Henry's a player that we've really been high on all year. Great skill set, good skater, can handle the puck, make plays, sort of the modern day defenseman.
I play with confidence, and I'm puck moving D, making good passes, simple passes, what helps other players, and I love playing power play and PK too, so I want to be a big part of the team, of course. Missä te ootte? Mä oon tässä alhaalla. They're upstairs. Golfkihuone. Mä unohdin sanoa golfkihuone.
I like his hockey IQ. It sticks out right away as soon as you watch him on the ice. Very smart player, both moving the puck but also defensively. He has to get stronger. I think as far as his shot goes, that he can still improve his shot. It's getting better. He uses it a lot more, which is important.
I think Portland is such a unique place to like develop. Our coaches from NHL, trainer from NHL, could be manager from NHL. We have like great boss and like everything like NHL level. I think everyone on our team want to be in NHL. So, and our like coaches like inspiring us like to be a pro. Everyone want to be a pro. That's the biggest thing what I love over here.
You are to the left of Mike, so it's going to go Mike, Doug, you. Henry, you're in the front row.
Talking with Mark Eaton, like he's really good, big part for me right now. Like he sent me some videos to my iPad, and like I can see myself playing over there. And like Barry Smith have came a couple times over here and given me some couple good tips.
Welcome everybody. Stan Bowman, General Manager of the Blackhawks.
How's it going? Feet right in the box.
I want to share a couple words with you guys.
Hold the sign up nice and high for me.
You guys are in a really good position because you have 25, 30 people here. And everyone here is trying to make you a better hockey player. One of the things I want to communicate to you is just how lucky you guys are to have all these resources here to make you better athletes and professional hockey players. Everyone up here wants to make you better so that you can have a career in the NHL.
1, 2, 3.
Not everybody's going to make it, but
last ones.
It's really up to you guys at this point what you do next.
Perfect. You're all set.
It's an extremely difficult task, and we believe that each and every one of you has something in you, has the potential to play in the NHL someday. But we want to make sure you don't fall into the trap of thinking that's just something that happens or something that you're entitled to just because you were drafted or just because you signed your first contract. We're excited about this week. We're excited for you guys. You're going to be challenged. You're going to have a lot of fun, and I think you're going to learn a ton.
Here we go. Is there a puck on the ice? It's the last day for practice. Put it all out there, okay, boys, as we go.
We work really hard. We have those skating drills always before practice, and we work real well. So I think it was a really good experience for me. We get through like some strategy stuff and like how they want to defense, play offense. So it was a huge thing for me too.
Rhythmic-wise, you're always under control. Sometimes you're going to have to get a little bit more panic in your game, and also too a little bit more physical around the net when you have to.
Yeah.
Okay. But I like your skill set. You're very smooth. You're under control. All right. And we'll talk again tomorrow.
So we have just about 5 minutes left here to get to a few questions about that episode. Henry, at least one part of the transition to Chicago from Portland should be pretty easy. The Winterhawks logo and the Blackhawks logo, obviously pretty similar there. I'll ask you the same question I asked Dylan earlier. How did you do having Eric and Will Armistead, the shooter and editor there? Great work, especially that intro we love so much you saw in that clip. What was it like having those guys follow you around for 4 or 5 days?
For me, it was really easy. Like, I didn't take any stress about it. Just be myself all the time, and they did their work really well over there. So it's really easy for me.
I want to ask you, and I want to ask Dylan. It occurred to me really for the first time watching these clips that it might actually be kind of fun that you've got this record of your time, right, Dylan? I mean, like you, obviously, there's lots of records in terms of game footage and those things, but really seeing some of that stuff where cameras really don't ever go, it's kind of like your own personal home movie.
Yeah, definitely. I think, especially for the fans, it's nice to see that, you know, at least the college route for me, and I know a lot of people aren't too familiar with it, and, you know, obviously it's my family back home and all my friends got to watch it, and they thought it was awesome, and, you know, hopefully I can show my kids or something that video one day, and it'll stick with me forever.
When you watch that full episode, Dylan, and you see Henry and his teammates playing video games and playing golf, do you think maybe I should have gone the junior route instead of college? No?
Goes through my head sometimes, but I think I made the right decision.
Stan, we saw you obviously watching Henry there and tracking his development very closely, along with Mark Eaton, who we saw in some of these episodes. What have you seen in Henry as far as his growth from the time he was drafted?
Well, it's nice to see the steps he's taken. I think the biggest thing you notice from a year ago is just his physical maturity, and you know, he obviously put in a lot of work in the last year training, and he looks like he's you know, much stronger than he was. I think, you know, that's going to be continually the challenge for a defenseman at a young age. There's a lot of details in that position that it's hard to break into the NHL at a young age, and I think sometimes you can get physically overwhelmed if you haven't put the time in. But I was really impressed when I first saw Henry a couple weeks ago. He came in for our development camp, and he just looked different than all the other guys. You know, I think he's been training hard. He's put himself in a good position to come to training camp and try to make our team. So, you know, the fun part is when you see certain players really take a hold of their own development, and we want to play a role in that. We want to give him guidance, but at the end of the day, it's up to him to do it, and he did the hard work.
Eric, even in that clip, we saw how we had to dart around in time 4 or 5 different instances. What was the biggest challenge with this episode? What was the most fun shooting with Henry?
Well, first, like I said earlier, Henry's got a great personality, and that makes it a lot of fun for us when he's open and excited and willing to let us kind of behind closed doors. We basically started shooting the 29th pick without Henry knowing right after the draft. We were at development camp, we were at training camp festivals you'd see further in that piece. So that was basically a year-long shoot to get from that start to the final product. So I think sifting through all that footage from a full year to dwindle it down, much like with Dylan and On the Clock, when we have all this great footage, you want to show everybody everything, but selecting how to do it is pretty tough. I liked when Henry shows us kind of around Portland and his neighborhood and what it's like living there, moving from Finland, and a little bit different than what we had with Dylan, who was pretty local and not too far from home, but moving halfway across the world to a totally different place was kind of cool to hear from Henry.
So Jim, I want to actually close with you. One of the most fun parts, most rewarding parts I know for us as a staff over the past year or so since On the Clock debuted is hearing some of the feedback around the league that other teams and other scouts are watching these episodes. And what's some of the stuff you hear?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Blackhawks are known as a first-class organization, and other teams sort of emulate what we're trying to do. And I hear from a lot of different scouts as you go into different rinks, various things, and obviously more people than I realized were interested in scouting came up to me and mentioned they saw me on a clip, or I had a few friends that certainly were teasing and laughing. And one thing I didn't mention when we were talking about that clip is we were almost in a car accident driving to the game, and you say I look a little bit distracted because we actually get off the road and we like veer around a fire truck, and it was a little more harrowing than just the straight drive to the rink. So thankfully we didn't end up with any footage that that was damaging, but yeah, all those behind-the-scene things are a little bit strange. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of good things going on with the Blackhawks TV. You guys following us?
Well, now I have to question Eric's instincts, leaving out all the good drama.
Deleted
from the video.
Scenes.
Yeah,
they're coming up.
We'll put it on the DVD someday. I was going to end with a clip from our most recent Blackhawks Originals feature, the finale, episode 3 of season 2 of On the Clock, where you see all the behind the scenes, just like with Henry, of the selection of defenseman Adam Boquist. We are out of time for that, so I will leave it as a tease, hopefully. If you haven't seen it already, please go to chicagoblackhawks.com, click on BHTV, and check out that Blackhawks Originals feature, along with all of the Blackhawks Originals features. We're so grateful you guys stuck around this late in the day to watch this panel. We're so grateful you're here this weekend, and I want to say thanks to my great panel.